Who do I call if it ain't you? Tell me who to call if it ain't you.
It worked.
It worked. We're just gonna wait for a couple of people to spill in. Here we go. I see you. I see you.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Hanging in there.
Yeah. What's it like? What's the vibe for you?
Oh, I don't want to bore you, but we're going through like a renovation on top of this whole end of the world thing happening. So
Oh, at your house?
yeah, we started renovating in February. There was like an accident. There was some flooding that happened, but they haven't been able to finish it.
Yeah.
So now we're in temporary housing in like
Oh.
a beautiful, weird apartment with bad art.
It's gonna be a weird time for a little bit for a lot of us.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this, just so we can like check in with the community and see what's up with everyone. If you guys are just joining in, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to go below in the comment section and just ask us any questions. Me and my beautiful friend Asia are going to be able to answer your questions about anything creative related. The past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of students join our conversations. I know that it's a really weird time for y'all, especially with graduation coming up. There's so much uncertainty. And I think there's a huge conversation about like, you know, if you're a freelancer, like what are you going to do in order to support yourself during these times? But I think for now, like I would just love to get to know you and where you're coming from. I think that's really going to inspire some people. So Asia, why don't you just like give us a brief little intro of who you are?
I'm a mixed media artist and director and creative director.
Awesome.
And I live in Portland, Oregon. Moved back here about a year and a half ago from Tokyo.
Ooh.
But before that, my wife and our son, we were living in Shanghai and then LA and then New York. Yeah, so we've moved around quite a bit.
And you're
yeah.
you're a director. How did you build a career as a director? I think like a lot of women especially want to know like what do we do in order to get to that place?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I haven't been directing very long, but I have been a creative director and an artist and an art director for like as long as I can remember. And and a colleague of mine that I was working with on a Nike commercial who was directing it, he said to me at the end of our shoot, he was like, hey, he's like, I feel like you should try directing, like the way your brain works.
Yeah.
As an art director and as an artist lends itself naturally to this world. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. But as you know, like it's no casual thing. Like making film is not a casual thing. Like it takes a team to do that. So I just kind of thought to myself, okay, what resources do I have around me? And how can I start getting into this? And my cousin, his name's Ryan, he actually lives in Norway, but he has this band called the Ruby Sons. He had just released an album like a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so I hit him up and just said, hey, like, if you let me make a music video for you, I would be super, super honored. And it was like a very small budget. And I ended up having to put my own money in and just be really scrappy about it. And I just used every resource I had, like every person, like every friend. Put together a treatment that's really exciting and beautiful and fun. Like you'd be surprised by how excited and eager other people are to kind of get in on something and want to make something too for their portfolio or for their experience. So a lot of the friends that I brought on were in that position. Like my friend Alyssa O, she's an editor at Rock Paper Scissors, but now she's doing like a lot of big stuff with big directors for music videos and stuff. And Same with like the colorist we used at the time and the like set designer and stuff. So we all kind of like stepped in and helped each other out.
Yeah, I think I like that about directing, is you kind of build your little squad and everyone grows together over the years.
Yeah.
And I think like that for me is one of the main reasons why community is so important, is because having the ability to work through everyone's careers at the same time. So it's really cool to like be specifically myself, be where I am now, and reach out to friends that have like started their own studios, have like their own like personal practice overseas, and they're able to say like, hey, you know, I want you to work on something, you know, over in the Netherlands or something. And I feel like that really adds to the whole experience. So right now, what kind of projects are you working on?
Oh man, I mean, it's a weird time to be a director. But to be honest with you, like I've just started kind of going back to my roots and just started drawing again, because I started out as an illustrator.
Yeah.
Like I was a fine artist and illustrator before I even got into creative directing or directing. So that's kind of at the foundation of what I do.
Of everything.
And that's been pretty accessible and easy like during this time.
Mm-hmm. For a lot of people that are just coming on, feel free as we're talking to ask any questions. Go ahead and either push the button down below with the little question mark. You can submit a question there, or you can just submit a comment and we'll see it. A question that I had for you, because you are a creative mommy and there are a lot of mommies up in here, that are like specifically also running their own business, are directors, are freelancers, etc. And a big question that's been popping up is, how do you now during this time, and I think it's even more emphasized for you because you're going through, you know, like you said earlier in the conversation, a renovation at home that has like added stress. How do you establish work-life balance for yourself so that you're not like all over the place? Or if you are, you know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really hard. I mean, everyone's lives, like personal lives, are bleeding into work. And the cool thing about my job is like, they've been super understanding about that. Like sometimes like my 3-year-old will pop in on a Zoom conference call to like in a client presentation. But the cool thing is like, I think everyone first and foremost comes from a place of empathy, that this is just a really hard time for everyone, no matter what their situation is.
Yeah.
And I think secondly, just creating like a schedule for yourself. Like right now, for example, we're in like a 2-bedroom apartment in temporary housing, and like I'm kind of confined into this room for the next 5 hours. And then my partner and my kid are in the living room next door. So I do think creating a schedule and then working it out with your partner or whoever you're living with, or if you're on your own, it's a bit easier. But like, for example, the night before, we'll go over a schedule.
Yeah.
So today I blocked out like from noon until 6, like I'm going to be in this room working. And then after that, like we have our plans to have dinner and so forth.
I think that's a really healthy practice in general. I like that you mentioned that you plan the night before so that when you wake up, you already know what you need to do that day. I think that's a really good thing, especially for freelancers that already work at home, that maybe before all of this happened had already been in that struggle. I think like knowing that you take the time the night before to sit down and write down everything that you need to do the next day, so when you wake up with purpose.
Exactly.
I think that's really awesome. Talk to us a little bit about like what your career journey has been like, because it seems like you do so many different things, and I know there are so many women that I've spoken to that feel like they can't really put a definition on what they do or who they are in a career light. It's very like, you know, we're so multidimensional because we've gone through so many different phases in our creative career. And I'm curious, like, what your path has been like.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I think I've always felt like an other, like a like the black sheep, especially in my industry with my background and just who I am as a person, like being like queer person of color, being more like masculine presenting. But my career has had it's been really interesting how it's started. Um, when I was in art school, a professor of mine pulled me aside one day and he was like, "Hey, I noticed you were working in your sketchbook during class. Can I see it?" And
Yeah.
I thought that I was getting in trouble. And I was like, "Okay." And so I handed it to him and he flipped through it and he said, "I can get in trouble for telling you this." He's like, "But I don't think you need to be here. Um, there's this other school you should go to." And at the time, Wyden and Kennedy was doing this thing called 12, where they were picking 12 people a year to essentially like go to school, their special school that they were doing.
Yeah.
And I applied and I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to get in because like thousands of people apply to this thing. And then I got in surprisingly. And I had to convince my family to let me do it, that it wasn't some sort of weird like pyramid scheme or some fake thing.
Still like child labor.
And I remember going to like the dean of the art school and being like,
Yeah.
I got into this thing, like I'm gonna do it. And he was like, there's no way you're gonna get a job there. That's impossible.
Wow.
You're crazy. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? Like, this seems weird. And the structure of the school was better for me because you were essentially like learning from real life. You were sort of thrust into an ad agency with real clients. Like we had at the time MTV and Planned Parenthood and Good Magazine. Like these were all of the clients given to us, designated for the school.
Yeah.
And we had all of the resources at our disposal from Wyden, which was super fortunate. And then after I did that for a year, they had offered me a job and I said no because I didn't feel like I don't know if it was like imposter syndrome, maybe it was. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was still very much thinking like an artist.
Yeah.
And when you work in an ad agency, like there's a huge difference between making your art and making like a Nike commercial. So I had to learn how to like separate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so I went to Berlin after that, and I was there with a friend making art, and of course that romantic dream ran its course, and I was like, damn it, I need money. So I reached out to a friend again at Wyden and just said, hey, like I don't know if that opportunity is still available, but
yeah,
if you could consider me. And at the time, I didn't quite get along with the ECD who was running the office at the time. I don't think we really understood each other because he always kind of saw me as like the scrappy artist who didn't really know anything about advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied for the job anonymously.
Oh, whoa.
I sent in a book of ideas, and it was just a notebook with a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
Without my name attached. And it was the most, I don't know, it was like the most weirdo way to apply for a job. And surprisingly, like they said yes. And I think he was surprised too, because he was like, oh, I like this person. It's like, yeah, you like you like my brain. You just don't understand me as like this weirdo, scrappy, like gay person who's not a white dude.
Like,
so I got so yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you the whole story, but like,
oh my God, I love that.
Essentially, like they freelanced me for 6 months, and then I got a call from someone, and they were like, "We want to offer you the job full time," and I was like, "I'll take it, even though it's less money." But yeah, that was my story, and I think like the person who ended up hiring me was this woman named Susan Hoffman, who's like my guardian career angel. For me, like she was that person who really like changed my life.
Yeah.
She took a chance on me when I didn't know what I was doing. And I try to pay that forward too. Like as a creative director, like I try to hire people who I see something in them that can't be taught.
Yes.
And the rest sort of follows. Like we can teach you all that stuff, all the advertising stuff, but
Yeah.
you know, you come across these like really special, magical people with beautiful brains, like my friend Deandra Stokes that I work with. Yeah, I'm just, I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird story, but I don't know. I feel very fortunate.
No, I think it's really awesome that you, and thank you so much for sharing that with us too. I think a
For
lot
sure.
of people, especially early on in their careers, I know I can identify with this too. When I graduated from school, it was back in 2008, 2009 during the financial crisis, and there were no jobs whatsoever. And I remember that feeling of 6 months of straight rejection and not understanding how to deal with that. And then at some point, I realized, oh, it's because I'm trying so fucking hard to give people what I think that they want, when all I really needed to do was just be myself, like fully and
Yeah.
completely myself.
Well, it's cliche, but it's true. I feel like that
Yeah.
advice is so true because like no one can be you.
No.
Yeah. And I think like especially like when I was saying earlier about how when you're an artist, it's different than working like in an ad agency as an art director or creative director. But I do feel like where I had success early on, like when I was on the Nike account, was when I found a way to collaborate with the brand.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring things into the assignment that are purely just from you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but for example, like with Space Jam, like those creative directors at the time, like there was no reason why Michael Jordan and Space Jam should have been together, but Jim Riswold just really loved Bugs Bunny, so he put them together
Yeah.
because why not? So
Yeah.
yeah, not everything like has to be rationalized, I think, in order to creatively solve a problem, but I do think you need to find a way to articulate that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find a way to communicate that with clients and stuff. And the
Which
same
is,
thing happens with directing, like when you're
yes.
trying to convince people to make a film or music video, it's all about communication, and that's kind of, it's like a magic power.
It really is. And
Yeah,
every single person that we've talked to here has consistently said it's all about the way that you communicate your ideas and how you sell them.
exactly. Yeah,
You can be the most brilliant artist or director, but in order to make big things happen, you have to be able to tell your story.
for sure.
What do you think, if you could give any of us a little tip on understanding how to verbally, or even like with images, like communicate your ideas, what do you think is a good thing to just keep in mind in the back of your head?
Well, I was really bad at it in the beginning. I was really bad at it, but I do.
We all were, girl.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, so bad. I remember like getting on calls with people and just blanking and not saying anything.
Uh-huh.
It's really scary, but the cool thing is that the more you do it, the better you get. But I've always tried to keep it conversational because
Mm-hmm.
this is the most exciting part of people's day. You know, you're
Yes.
coming to them with your vision as a director, a treatment, or a commercial, or an idea for an installation. Like this is an exciting time for people to be receiving that. So just try to remember that these are people that you're presenting to. Try to bring a bit of joy and fun and spontaneity into the conversation. I also like to check in with people when I'm presenting,
Mm-hmm.
and try to envision that you're talking to like your grandma or like a 4-year-old when you're presenting.
True.
I think that really helps. And for some people, practicing does help.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if
Mm-hmm.
you know your work inside and out, if you familiarize yourself with the idea, you'll be able to just kind of spitball it. You won't need to keep referencing like the deck. I think just knowing your work, understanding your idea helps.
Right, because when you know it, then you're able to just go with the flow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Philly B says, I came into the ad world also from both an art and filmmaking angle. At first, they were so scared of me because I was used to speaking my mind.
Yeah, I relate to that.
I think that's me right now.
I know.
But also, it's not a bad thing.
Are you freelancing or what are you doing?
I'm freelancing right now. I'm on a contract. But it's funny because I spent a whole year specifically trying to work on projects that were just like a team of all women. And of course, like I get to Portland and it's very sports heavy, like no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And my team right now is all dudes. So it's an interesting dynamic to come back into that, because now at this stage of my life, I'm so sure of myself and of my ideas. And I'm really good at selling crazy ideas. Crazy. They're not that crazy. But I like, me specifically, I like being that person that I come into a room and I still have like a really chill and friendly vibe, but I also like to push people's boundaries, not in a negative way, just like creatively. Like if someone says, I want to do this, then I'm like, well, what happens if we do this? And I think like that just takes practice, you know, you being really confident in like your idea and you can see what the product looks like in the future. I think having that concept in your head already before you walk into the room is really important too. Because you're going to be bombarded by tons of questions. Some of them are great. Some of them are really stupid. And it's good for you to be able to just like, you know, have the answer in the back pocket and be like, wham, like, this is why I'm doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, I had to tone down everything. I think it's a balance, you know, and also if you ever, me personally, if you get to a place that you feel like you always have to tone down things, if you're freelancing, like go and find other clients that you can build better partnerships with that will elevate your work and like understand your ideas and where you're coming from. Like that's the good part about the world that we're living in today, is like it's possible.
Sometimes what we like to do at Wyden is like start really, 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 really far out with the thinking, because you know that someone's going to pull it back a little bit. And I do think like, like what you're saying, like being able to visualize and articulate the idea and demonstrate how it comes to life is essential. Like sometimes you're dealing with very literal people who can't think in abstract terms. So like having a visual to kind of help people see that is important.
Totally. And I think to your point, even if you're not at an agency and you're working for yourself, when you go in to pitch concepts, don't limit yourself before you actually put the big idea out there. It's much better for you to put the giant idea out there and then scale it down.
Exactly,
because you don't want to trap yourself also as a creative person into a place where like you've already lowered the bar for yourself before you even started.
Well, it's important. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, go for it.
I don't want to contradict myself, but I do feel like it is important to acknowledge the assignment, right? So like say you have a client who's given you $10,000 for something, like that's pretty small, but at least in advertising world, it is important to acknowledge that and be realistic. And then I think very gracefully you can say, okay, this is crazy, but what if we did this? And you'd be surprised, like sometimes that magic trick does work on people. Like if they love something enough, they'd be willing to kind of go for it.
Totally.
So I do think that, again, like just being mindful
within the
important.
parameters.
Yeah. But I have to run in 3 minutes and I don't want to.
You guys, any last minute questions right now, shoot them off right now. Otherwise, we're going to let this beautiful human being go.
We should do this again, though. It was nice to like hang out with you.
Again. If anybody has questions after this live is over, go ahead and shoot them in their DM. Okay, we'll take one more before you leave. How do you deal with your ideas getting watered down?
Oh God, I don't deal. It's so hard. It's so hard. You know, sometimes, and I'm not saying this works every time. I've definitely had like situations where things have been watered down. I think what I said earlier about starting farther out helps. But sometimes you can go back to the drawing table and say, okay, this idea that we had, it only works if you do it this way. The whole point is to be like X, Y, and Z. However, if you can't do that, then let's try this. Or how can I help solve your problem? If the problem is we want something that's bold, but not going to like isolate people. I think trying to and get people to have you solve the problem is important. And again, like we work at a creatively led agency, so like most ad agencies aren't like that.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to remind people like, hey, they hired you to solve the problem. If you can do that, then that helps.
Awesome. Emily Mood says Asia for president.
Oh, Emily, I love you.
All right. On that note, I'll let you go. Thank you so much, Asia, for joining us for this 30-minute chat. We'll definitely get you back on here again. And I hope that you have a really awesome rest of your day. Everyone else, we're coming back on Wednesday and Friday with some new guests. Don't forget to tune in. Same time, same place.
Bye. Nice to chat with you.